Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. I get to create the adventure of my lifetime today because one of my favorite people in the world is here because, and you know, I say that sometimes, but this time I mean it, really.
I hope so, or I'll feel so sad.
Randi-Lee Bowslaugh is with us today. She is, let me see if I can remember all this stuff. You are a author, you are a fellow podcaster, you are a mother of a high school graduate, and we might even talk about how important that is.
Yeah.
And she's also okay, I got to tell you this. Just the other day, I had a gentleman call me, and I won't use his name, but he's a listener from Alaska. And he says,
Cool.
I listen to your show all the time, and I just love it. Do you take requests? And if you do, I would love for you to have a athlete, a great athlete, or a actor, or someone like that to come on your show. So I picked a great athlete to come on the show, and and somebody's going, wait a minute, she doesn't look like a great athlete, and stuff. But Randi-Lee is I believe you were a national champion, were you not?
I was in 2015. Now it's like an entire lifetime ago, but 2015 I was national champion.
National Canadian champion kickboxer.
That's right.
You know, have you ever? Do you remember the show? What line is no?
Whose line is it anyway?
Not that one. It was about like truth or it was one of those where three people would stand up and say, "Hi, my name is Randi-Lee Bowslaugh," and the other one would say, "My name is and then the third one, and then you have an answer and question, and people and these celebrities try and figure out who the real Randi-Lee is."
Oh, like kind of like a two truths and a lie type deal.
Yes, exactly. But see, we would line you up and say, and the following is a national champion kickboxer, and we have a couple of studly dudes up there, and you.
Yep.
and people would go, no, that can't be her. That can't be her. But there she is, and there she was and you actually went to the Olympics, did you not?
No. The kickboxing, is it part of the Olympics now? It wasn't when I was doing it. They were working on getting it in. I went to the World's Tournament, and then I went to the Pan Americans, and at the Pan Americans I got silver.
The silver medal at the Pan American Games. That's a big deal.
It hangs in my living room. It looks very shiny and pretty.
So now I interviewed you before and we've talked before, but I don't know that I really understand what kickboxing is. Is it a combination of regular boxing, only you're using your feet? Is it like MMA where you can use your elbow and headbutt and do all kinds of horrible things to another human being?
So it depends on which style you're doing. So there is different styles. So I fought in both full contact and low kick. So in low kick, you can kick or punch anyone from their knees up to their head, avoiding joints, avoiding the back. Like there's rules, obviously. But you could, you kick them right in the face. That was one of my favorite things to do. Kick them right in the face, punch them in the face. And then in full contact, you can kick and punch anywhere above the waist. So you could no longer kick the legs above the waist. And in full contact, you had to kick at least, oh, it's been a while since I went over the rules. I want to say 12 is coming to my mind. I don't know. 12 times for the fight in order for it to be a qualifying match. Now, there is, though, it's called K1, and then there's also Muay Thai. So I did train in Muay Thai, just never competed in it. But so full contact and Muay Thai are similar in the sense that you can clinch the person. So that means that you can grab them around the head, and you can knee them. And in Muay Thai, you can elbow them. But once they're down on the ground, you can't go after them and start beating them. So that's where we differentiate with MMA. You're not going after them after they're on the ground.
It's been years now, but the first time I saw MMA, I thought, that can't be legal. How could he be jumping on somebody and elbowing them in the face repeatedly when they're like on their back or on their stomach or whatever? But it was real, and I don't know. Now I know that you enjoyed the art of doing that and kicking people in the head.
Yeah.
Did you ever knock anybody out?
No, but I did bloody a girl's nose. It was actually at it was when I was getting nationals. And her nose was all bleeding. And I kind of stopped for a second. I looked at the ref, and he kind of looked at me. I'm like, she's bleeding. He's like, keep going. Like, you can't just stop, because like the round isn't over. She's not knocked down. She's still defending, so she's still fine to fight. But I was like, oh, okay. Well, now I have something to aim at.
Well, now don't they? Now that you mention it, I'm thinking, with AIDS and with bloodborne illnesses and stuff, that you would think that if somebody were actually bleeding, they would stop the match and get them to stop bleeding. But maybe in those days they didn't do that. I don't know.
Right? We're talking 10 years ago, which doesn't seem like a long time, but it really is.
It is, but AIDS was in like in the 80s.
Oh yeah. Well, and they definitely clean everything up afterwards, but unless somebody is throwing in the towel, they don't stop it, right? Like, look at MMA, for instance, right? They can be all bloodied up and they keep going, right? In that sport, in this field. Now, we do have to fill out medicals. So on the medicals, it does have to state if you have anything. And in MMA, I know, because I trained with some professional MMA fighters. I actually did a little bit of training in MMA and jiu-jitsu. But the professional fighters, they did have to go get like a full physical. So I'm guessing they probably checked for that stuff. And then because you're being cleared by the doctor, the idea is that you have not contracted something from the time you did your medical to the time that your fight is, because they would have to get a medical done right before each of their matches, because they were professional fighters.
Isn't it kind of weird that you have to go to a doctor, have a complete physical so that you can get the poo knocked out of you?
No, what I think is weird is that people want to get the poo knocked out of them, so they go and get the complete physical.
I understand completely. Well, of course, I was for a brief period of time, I was a boxer, and I don't know if I've told you this story, but this
I know you told me you were a boxer. I don't know about this story specifically.
Well, me and my girlfriend, we went to a movie that we had never seen, didn't know much about it, but we'd heard good things about it. And this was in 1976, long before you were the gleam in somebody's eye. And we were sitting there watching the movie, and it started with dun 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 dun, and it was like, oh, this is going to be a boxing movie. Okay, well, and Sylvester Stallone and all the Carl Weathers, God rest his soul, and all the others were there, and it was like, I want to do that. That sounds like fun.
Right? Yes.
And I can do that. So I went home and Uh, at that time, there was a professional gym called the Eagles Gym and it was at the Eagles Auditorium in downtown Seattle, and it was like the Rocky movie. I mean, it was all kind of smoky and dingy down. It
Yeah,
was in the
yeah.
basement, and
Okay.
and the guys that were there, some of them had their nose that was against the, like, hey
Mhm.
dude, how are you? And there were others that, and then there was the trainers and the one guy, his name was Joe Toro. He's passed now, but and he told me, Randy-Lee, he told me that he could make me the champion of the world. Now, at that time, Marvin Hagler was the middleweight champion of the world,
Okay.
and he said, "Yeah, we can get you to be that good." Because I was a very strong kid and I had a great punch,
Okay.
but sadly, I had my first fight, and we went to Monroe Reformatory, which is a prison. I don't recommend visiting a prison or spending any time there specifically. So we went there, and I won the first round, and then I got knocked out the second round and broke my cheek and had to have surgery and stuff. And so that was like, and the end of my boxing career. Thank goodness, because I still have a brain in my head.
Right? Exactly. I know a couple people that got concussed multiple times, and I'm like, "Oh, no, thank you."
Yeah, because I knew a guy that he was a heavyweight, and he was what they call a journeyman, and
Okay.
so he wasn't really very good, but he was big, and he could take a punch.
Okay.
And so the last time I saw him, it was like, "Yeah, yo, dude, how are you doing? I'm doing fine now too." I mean, he was
Yeah.
clearly, and he was like in his late 20s, and he was punch drunk, and it was
Yeah.
he clearly had way too many blows to the head, and so I'm glad that. So I wanted to ask you, since you did this,
Mhm.
what do you think of sports? Go back in time. Of course, there were gladiators and all that kind of stuff prior to that. But what do you think of a sport that whose primary goal is to beat somebody up?
See, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Which
Now
part? The beating people up part?
oh, it is fun. Um, it's such a different physical game than other ones, right? Like, I do not ask me to throw or catch a ball. Last time I played baseball, I caught it with my face. Like, it's not a thing I do. Um, so, I like that. I love the sport of kickboxing. So much fun. And the goal isn't actually to kick the crap out of the other person. I mean, MMA is a little bit different. The goal is to get more points than the other person.
Ah,
So it is a scoring system. So yes, you do have to land your techniques, um, but it still comes to the scoring system. So obviously, if you get a knockout, then you also win. But out of all the years I did it, I never saw a knockout. I did see somebody who, they did have to throw in throw in the flag, but nobody truly knocked out. So I mean, it actually happens very rarely than what TV leads us to believe. Um, TV loves to show us other stuff. But I mean, as long as you're doing it safely, there's doctors right there. Like, as soon as you leave the ring, you have to go and get assessed. Before you enter the ring, you're getting assessed. Like, I think they do take a lot of precautions. And as long as you're following those precautions, wearing all the equipment, because there's some people that are like, I'm not going to wear my headgear. And I'm like, well, you're an idiot. Right? So if you're taking the right steps, taking care of yourself, taking time off when you are injured, it's a great sport. I love it. I wish I could still do it. Like if my body didn't decide that it was dumpy now,
It was
I would
it
still.
was done.
Yeah, my body's like, actually, we're gonna sit down. That's what we're. Sitting down sounds good.
Well, and there's a lot. You have to be in incredible shape
Oh,
to be
I
able to do
was. I had abs and everything back in the day. Now I got a nice keg going
that. Well, but that's part of life, and it's the when I was a kid, I was strong and fit and stuff, and now I'm not any of those things.
on.
And
Right? I mean, I've had a kid. I've had cancer. Like I'm pretty good shape for all the stuff that's happened.
yeah, and you're young and you're vivacious. You've got a wonderful personality. You've got a
Wait, hold
wonderful.
on, hold on. I know you don't mean it this way, but usually when people say you have a wonderful personality, it's because you're not very pretty.
Yeah, but no. I started with young and vivacious. Do you know what vivacious means?
No, but I'm guessing by this context, it means pretty.
That would be correct, young lady. Would be, and so you are all of those things, and you have a nice personality too.
Okay.
Of course,
I'm so well rounded.
that's the same thing is what always happened with me in my dating life, which was when a woman says to you, "You're a really nice guy."
Friend zoned.
That you are now in the twilight friend zone and you shall not ever get out of the friends. He's a nice guy. But to date him? Oh no. I want somebody who's mean and nasty and is gonna beat me up
Right?
and
I've never understood those ones. Like, no thanks.
yeah, my whole life was that way because I've always been I am who I am. I am who I am, who I am. And I've always been, kind of a nice guy. And so consequently, I don't fare well with the fairer sex because I'm not mysterious and don't know what you're thinking. And by the way, I'm going to change him.
Oh,
He's,
right.
you've heard that before, I'll bet.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen.
No,
And
it's not. You can't change people.
no, they are who they are, and especially after you get to know them for a while, and then they become really who they are.
Right?
That's even a bigger problem. But
Mm-hmm.
in any event, we're talking with Randi-Lee. She's got a new book coming out, and we're going to be talking about that. We've also got to talk about her young son who just graduated high school, and it is a bigger deal for her and her family than for many because of the challenges that he has had growing up. And by the way, if you want to find out more about Randi-Lee, go to rbwriting.ca because she's, like in Canada and stuff. And
A.
Eh, it's awfully nice to have you here from the Canada part of the world. It's awfully so I like to pretend that I've got a good caricature of a Canadian accent, but I don't know how good it is.
Not for at least the area I live in. Maybe up north more.
Well, you live kind of by don't you live
Buffalo. Yeah.
by where?
Close to Buffalo. Like I'm right by the border.
Oh yeah, so you're almost you're almost an American citizen kind of thing.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yes, indeed. So we need to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about her son and how proud she is. And oh, by the way, not only did he graduate from high school, but he's also enrolled, at least the last time I talked to her, he is also enrolled in a pastry chef school that is highly acclaimed and is really, really good. And when we come back, we're going to tell you why she is so proud of that and that she is like a mama bear like no other. We're going to return in just a moment. Please stay with us.
You're listening to Positive Talk Radio. We're going to take a short break to tell you audio and music creators about our commercial affiliate, Lyric Vids, specializing in creating amazing and engaging lyric videos. Are you looking to promote your videos in the most engaging way, but you don't have an animator and an editor? Whether you're an artist, musician, or business with a message to share, our lyric videos are designed to hook viewers and amplify your reach. Go to positivetalkradio.net/lyric vids. That's positivetalkradio.net/LYRICVIDS now to get started. Welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. We hope you enjoyed learning about our affiliate Lyric Vids, who specialize in creating captivating animated lyric videos. Now let's get back to the show.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and Randi-Lee Bowslaugh is our guest today. She is with us she's from Ontario. She's not there now, but she's in Canada still, and she's a wonderful podcaster. She's an author and a mother who would not take no for an answer, regardless of which particular school or teacher or system that she was confronted with. She made sure that she was her son's best advocate. So tell us a little bit about his story.
Well, first off, he has autism, ADHD, depression, anxiety, and depending on who you ask, just keep adding more random letters to it. And so, as Kevin said, recently he graduated from high school with honors, which is a huge deal because throughout his high school life, they didn't believe he was smart enough for regular class. So they kept putting him in segregated classrooms. And I have nothing against segregated classrooms. I think they do have their place, and grade 4 worked really well for him. Grade 5 didn't. Grade 6 didn't. Grade 7 was okay. Grade 8 was okay. And then high school was that's the technical term. Okay.
Yes. Can you spell that for us?
It's spelled weren't expecting that, were you?
No, it wasn't. You might want to wipe off your microphone now.
Well, that's why I have the cover, right?
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So high school was not a exciting experience for him because he has a special way of learning that you had figured it out. But a lot of teachers, no, I'm sorry, ma'am. We have to do it this way because the rules say that we have to do it this way because those are the rules. And I don't know why the rules are there, but the rules are there. And so they're the rules.
They're the rules. Yeah. So actually COVID really helped us discover it. And okay, so his graduation was at the end of June. And the valedictorian, there was 2 valedictorians, and they were doing their little speech. And part of their speech was, and we all agreed that COVID was awful. And I looked at my husband, I go, I don't agree to that. Because during COVID, they had to do their work online. A vast majority of kids didn't like it. Vast majority of kids would have rather been social with their friends. But there were kids that thrived. And I feel like they get dumped on because they liked not having to be social and leave the house. They liked learning online. And it's like those ones don't actually exist. They like to pretend like those ones, they do. So Love excelled online. And when COVID finished and they were able to go back to school, which was more grade 10-ish, he tried. He did. He went. And it was unsuccessful. So it was too overwhelming going there with all of these people that they picked on him in elementary school, right? Because you're with the same kids through the whole thing. And
right.
even when a couple, because usually it's a couple elementary schools all amalgamate into one high school. Even that, you're stuck with the same kids. Yeah, there's some other ones, but you're still stuck with the ones that picked on you and bullied you all through elementary school. So he's stuck with these kids that already don't like him, but go to school and be social, be great. So clearly no. And so he did all his work online, did really well. But this last year specifically, last summer, as we're preparing to go into grade 12, finish it up, we get a new principal. And this new principal is trying to persuade me to send him to school. And I said, no, he's doing his work online. He does well at it. Why would I do that? He goes, well, technically, we shouldn't have been doing it the way we've been doing it for the past 3 years. I go, okay, so figure out a way to make it so that we can. I don't care what you have to do, but this is what's happening. I said, you know what? If you want me to send him to school, sure, I'll send him to school. Then he's going to have a meltdown. Then you're going to end up calling me to go pick him up. Then you're going to have to suspend him. I mean, if you want to play this game, that's what's going to happen. Let's do this. He's like, well, no, I don't want that. I said, good, now figure it out. And he did. So there was basically he just had to sign a couple forms. Like, it was not a big thing, but they make it so hard to get. And actually my best friend, she has this similar struggles with her son, and I would tell her this is what happened, and she had to pull her kid right from school and homeschool him for a long time. He's back in school now because he wants that piece of paper, but they just wouldn't listen to her. And I said, hey, this is what I did. And I had to tell him. And she's like, yeah, that's what I'm doing now. She's like, and it's so frustrating when you know your kid is smart enough, but they just don't want to deal with it. And then you find a way that it works, but that doesn't fit in their box. Well, guess what? Nobody fits in a box anymore. Everybody is unique and different, right? That's what they're teaching kids here. Oh, everyone is special and different, and we all have our own feelings, which is fine. But then don't try to put them in a box when they go to school. You can't have it both ways.
And really, honestly, nor should you, because kids are individuals. And to teach a child that there's only one way to do something and this is how it's got to be done it doesn't serve them later on in life anyway.
Right.
Because after you get done with school, you're making this stuff up all by yourself. Nobody's there to tell you, yeah, no, you can get extra credit by washing dishes at Denny's and or flipping burgers or whatever. You have to make this stuff up. You have to learn how to make a living. You have to learn and all the things that to become an adult and a member of society you've got to do. It takes some ingenuity and understanding yourself and to think out of the box. So
Right.
your child is going to be well served by the fact that I was thinking to myself while you were telling your story that the executive secretary at that particular school, I'm sure when the principal said, yeah, I've got a Mrs. Bowslaugh is going to come and see me. And she said, oh, really? He said, well, why? Oh, no. She's going to come see you. It's not going to end well this is what you need to do, or it's not going to end well.
Right? Like when he was little, like we're talking kindergarten, grade 1 or whatever, and I'd have to go in for a school meeting and I would just, okay, that's what you guys think. Okay. Not going, you guys actually don't have my kid's best interests at heart. You just want what's easy for you. Well, no, we're not doing that. That's not a thing. There was one meeting in particular that was pretty pivotal. I haven't told this story to you yet. And so he was in grade 1. He was being bullied relentlessly by this kid to the point that he was having night terrors in the middle of the night, like relentlessly. So I called the school. I said, I need to set up a meeting to talk about this. This was in October. And they go, okay, sure. So they set up the meeting. We go in and they start talking about whatever it was. I don't remember specifically, but I remember going, I called this meeting actually to talk about the bullying. So that what you're talking about right now isn't important. This is what's important. Because they were trying to talk. I don't remember the specifics of what they're trying to say, but they were trying to talk about his school performance. But that's not why I'm having this meeting, right? That can be a different meeting. That is so not more. His school performance is going to suck because he's petrified to come to school right now. So that is just not a thing we're talking about, because there are more important things to do right now. Like, not have a kid threaten to shoot him with a gun.
That would be, nice.
Right?
But well, it amazes me because you've gone down this road, and this is very instructive to a lot of parents, because you know your child better than anybody, and when your child is having night terrors because of he's getting bullied, and clearly he was a little bit different than the other kids, and stuff, but but teachers and principals, they kind of want to make it all kind of fit into the cute little box,
Right?
and that doesn't work for a lot of kids, and today even more and more, and you now have become a strong advocate for special needs kids, which
Mhm.
I really appreciate about you, and that makes a difference because there are more, seems to me, maybe I'm wrong, but there seems to be more special needs kids today than there have been in the past. Is that true?
I'm going to say yes. And it's not for the reason most people complain about. So, a lot of, as my kid would say, a lot of boomers, um, they like to say, well, that wasn't a thing when I was a kid. And how many people, that wasn't, there wasn't that many when I was a kid. Here's the thing about when you were a kid. A, people weren't talking about it. They were too scared. They were told, you don't talk about this stuff outside your house. So you're not being diagnosed. And the other part is that a lot of these diagnoses were studied in males. Specifically autism were studied in males. So females weren't diagnosed for the longest time. And if they were extreme cases, because all the early studies of autism were done on only boys. So when you hear about the typical autism signs, right, we're talking about the flapping of the hands, the rocking back and forth. Those are very male dominated traits. And so if girls didn't display those, you don't have this. And in girls, a lot of them are much quieter and reserved. We don't want to speak out. We don't want to do those things. And well, that was just seen as being a typical female, because females are meek and they're quiet and they're calm. So it has nothing to do with back in my day, there wasn't as many. It has to do with, wow, people actually care enough to go and get a doctor's diagnosis to actually get help, instead of having the person grow up and wonder what the heck was wrong with them their whole life.
And find out in their 30s and 40s that they had ADHD, and they had a bunch of letters that I can't go into, but by the way, we're talking with Randi-Lee Bowslaugh. You should go to her website, which is rbwriting.ca. She's got a new book coming out. She's a published author already, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. It's great you are just one of my favorite people, because you're so smart, and you are such an advocate for your son. That is, more people need to be strong enough to be able to do that, but you're helping people by just being here talking about it. We need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Well, I woke her up. I woke Randi-Lee up. That song is it's designed to get everybody moving, get your blood flowing a little bit, and everybody waking up to a new reality, which could be different than it was yesterday, whatever that reality is for you. I don't know what I just said, but I think it was smart.
I think it sounded smart. It sounded very philosophical.
Which is how I live my life, in a philosophical manner, even though I can't say philosophical. By the way, we're talking with Randi-Lee Bowslaugh, and she's an author, and you've got another book that's coming out, a book of poetry of all things. That's at the, as they say, at the editors now.
Yes. So that one's coming out. And then of course the kids book, which I think we talked about last time I was on the show. Did we talk?
We did, maybe.
I think so. The one that Kevin just mentioned, the book of poetry, I just told him before the show was starting that one's at the editors. So my very first book, how I got started in writing, was actually doing poetry. I was super depressed at the time. So they're very dark, but they're good. They're just real dark. And so this one though is much more about taking back your life, taking back your power, being who you are. So throughout it, there's also pictures of nature all through it, because I feel very connected with nature, I guess is what I'm saying. So there's the poems, there's the beautiful nature pictures, and yeah, as soon as the editor gets back to me saying, I would love to say that they're going to come back and say everything's beautiful, but I'm sure they'll come back and say, well, you gotta fix. Then we'll get to publishing.
Well, I got to tell you, now I'm going to ask you a question that I don't know the answer, and I'm willing to bet that you don't either.
I'm sure I have an answer.
You may have an answer, but I don't think it's the right one. How many books have you written?
Okay, so we counted last time. So I'm going to say 20.
I think that's close, in that you've written nonfiction books, you've written fiction books, you've written children's books, social stories, notebook. You've been busy, and you have a full-time job, and you're a podcaster. When do you sleep, young lady?
Between 10 and 7.
So I have trouble with that. I tend to get involved with something and I stay up later than I should, and then I'm tired the next day. It's just sad.
Yeah, I don't have that problem so much. I like my bed. I've always been like that though. I've always been the kid that wants sleep.
Well, so how do you get so much stuff done?
Great question. So, sometimes I can be a little overwhelmed by everything, but my podcast runs Wednesday mornings at 9:30. We go live. So that's set my schedule, right? That's when I'm doing it. My day job, I work four days a week. So a lot, but it's good. I like the ladies that I all work with. And then, I try to go on at least one other person's show a week. This is my favorite. And then hopefully I find time in there to write. Sometimes that happens, sometimes that doesn't. Oh, speaking of stuff that I do and new things, because you love being one of the first. My friend and I have recently started a brand new show. It is still on my regular channel, but we have done now 3 episodes of it. And guess what it's about?
Given the width of the books that you've written, I could have no earthly idea. It could be about anything.
Mental health.
Oh, wow. That's
right.
That fits.
But the cool thing is it's the history of it. So we named it Bedlam Beyond Mental Illness. So she picked Bedlam because Bedlam was one of the first terms that they were using for people. That's how that's the rough definition, crazy people. But our very first episode, we actually go into what that means and where it came from and all that stuff. So it's pretty cool concept. So one of us does the research for the topic, and the other person gets to hear it for the first time. So it's like, oh, I didn't know that, and that's cool. And so it's very fun. It's still informational, right? Like you're getting all this cool information about where stuff came from. So we did one yesterday, and we don't have a set schedule yet. We're trying to do 2 a month, but our schedules don't always. So eventually, hopefully, we'll be like, yes, every other Thursday, that'll be the day. But right now, it's just stay tuned. But yesterday we did bipolar, and this time I did the research and she did the listening. I hate research. I always say that she's way better at it than me. But it was really cool. It was cool.
Can we, since you've done some research on bipolar, let me, for those of you who haven't personally experienced somebody who is really bipolar, let me tell you, this happened to my brother, and he was married to the same woman 2 different times. They were together, they got married, then they got divorced, and then they got married again, and then they got divorced again. And
I feel like you told me that part before.
I may have, because he told me one time that they would have they would be at her house. They kept their separate houses, and they would be having a wonderful time. And then it's like this anger thing happened, and she turned on a dime and called the police and had him thrown out. Then 3 days later, she woke up, or she walked up to his door of his house wearing nothing more than a coat and a.
You have told me this story before. I think maybe like 3 times ago that I was on here, but I remember this.
She was wearing nothing but a coat and had a casserole of spaghetti in front of her. And so it was like, can you let me in? I'm going to feed you in more ways than you can imagine in just a moment. And so it confused the hell out of them. It was like, okay, who's going to show up today? Is it going to be the witch, or is it going to be the good witch or the bad witch? Is it going to be the one from the east or the one from the north? And oftentimes he never knew until it was way too late. And so to my mind, that's my personal experience of bipolar. Is that kind of the way it is?
That is one type. So there are 3 types of bipolar. And now, so they back in 1980 is when they finally kind of divided correctly-ish. The differences with the 3 types. So there's like bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and I can't even say it. Cyclomyth something, guys, look it up. I can't say it. Renata said it for me yesterday. But so it's, the down and dirty definitions are: 1, you have serious mood swings. 1, the mood swings are much smaller. And then the other one is there is more normal in between them, right? So there's some different ways of doing it. But it's interesting because it took a very long time before people agreed that there is a cycling of emotions, which is what bipolar is. So for a long time, it was just manic depressive, or you were in mania. And that's where they got the term maniac from all these people that were in a state of mania. And for a long time, they were called, I just did it yesterday too. It was depressive mania. It was hyphenated, the word depressive mania. And eventually I want to say 1950s, they finally stopped calling it that because they wanted to stop calling people maniacs. And that's when they started kind of thinking, okay, maybe there is this cycling sort of thing. Maybe they aren't always two separate. Maybe there is some kind of pattern here between the two. But it took a very long time before that was recognized.
And to this day, it still is misdiagnosed, and it's still, the medication is not necessarily good for everybody. So it still is. It can be a really tough thing for someone like my brother who had no earthly idea. He had never heard of bipolar before he met
Right.
me. And then somebody said, "Well, maybe she's bipolar." She's bi what? And it became, and then it became a thing.
Yeah.
Um, and but I'm glad that the way that you're doing that show, and you're enlightening people, and you're helping people do some educating themselves, because our world is kind of at times kind of dark, and but it
Mhm.
can be. And I know that you've written about your brother and his suicide and things, and but at the same time, you are a marvelously positive person. How do you do it?
Uh, drugs. Prescription, all right. Antidepressants help immensely with that. Like I said, that first poem I wrote, first book with those poems, real dark. And I was not on antidepressants back then. But on a more serious note, yes, antidepressants and therapy. I've done a lot of therapy and a lot of working on some of my issues, figuring out who the heck I am, and realizing that those things that make me different don't make me bad. So you had mentioned it earlier. Some people aren't diagnosed until their 30s or 40s with autism or ADHD. Well, that was me. I was in my 30s before I was diagnosed, and I went, wow, everything makes sense now. I mean, it doesn't change who I am. It changed my perspective of who I am, and my perspective of why some people may not get along with me, or why sometimes I feel the way that I do in certain situations. So a heck of a lot of work on myself and antidepressants. Then you can stay smiling.
And knowledge is power.
Exactly.
If you understand what's actually going on with you, then that's something that couldn't be really good.
Yeah.
So here's my friend Holly has a question for you. First of all, she said, "I'm tuning in right," and she got us right at the negative part. I swear, Holly, we weren't negative in the early part of the show. We were having a really good time, and we were talking about kickboxing and positive thing, and stuff. So she wants us to be positive. What's, in your opinion, what's the first step for someone to improve their life, or to take steps, especially when you've got these obstacles like mental illness or ADHD or autism and stuff? What do
It's
you
going to
recommend?
sound stupidly cliche, but decide that you want to improve your life. I hate sounding cliche, but that really is the first step. Because if you don't make that decision, if you just keep going through, and I'll give an example, and I love my mom, don't get me wrong, I adore her,
Of course you.
but she likes to complain and complain, but never decide to change anything. Right. So just the other day, she was complaining at me because my aunt got a job that my mom had went to school for. And she goes, and she didn't even go to school for it. I went to school for it. And how did she get it? And I go, well, she looked. Right. Like, it's really that simple. She looked, you didn't. And so that whole idea of make the decision is honestly the very first step. Make the decision, and then you can go from there. Because if you just decide to keep living life the exact same way as always, it's not going to improve.
What do they call that? The Einstein's rule of doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Insanity.
Yes, definition of insanity, because
Yeah.
that's really what it is.
Yeah.
If you want to do the same things that you've always done, you're going to always get the same things that you've always had. So change
Exactly.
it. Do something different. Go do something that you've never done before. That go help somebody. I know. Hey, how about this? Next time you go to the grocery store, I want you to say hello with a smile on your face to the cashier. Might be the only person all day that they get a smile.
You want me to go to a cashier, not self-checkout?
Uh, over down here in the good old US of A, they're getting rid of the self checkout thing because
Yeah.
people figured out how to steal and stuff. So we're now getting back to cashiers. But and regardless of what it is, I have to tell you this story real quick.
Okay.
I have, and I know that you and I would never have this problem, but I grew up in the service industry. Okay. And so if there was somebody that I really thought was somebody special that I wanted to go have lunch with, and I thought that they were a great human being and stuff, I pay attention to how they treat the wait staff.
Yes. Mhm.
If they treat the wait staff like they're a servant and they're less than, I
Mhm.
want nothing to do. I had a whole radio show that was dedicated to this one concept, this one guy. I canceled the show that day because I was not, and he was crying and then he sued me. But that's just another story. But I wasn't going to put up with somebody who was so disingenuous that they were not nice to everybody, regardless of where that person was in their particular journey. And who knows, that wait staff that he was mean to may have been in a doctorate program for all we know.
Yeah. Right. I like those. What is it? Darman. He does all those like little videos that always end with, well, however they say it, they generally say the same thing. Well, just so you know, this is what happened. And then they go into the whole backstory and kind of thing.
Yes. And I'm sorry, what was the point there?
That you need to treat everyone with respect and not just poo-poo on them because say they're wait staff.
Yeah, and the other story that I like to tell is I was a bus driver for 12 years.
Did I know that? I feel like I didn't know that. How did I not know that?
I don't know, but I drove a bus in Seattle, and it was like one of those 60-foot articulated buses, and had 50 or 60 people on my bus all the time.
Okay.
And I made it a mission in life for me to say hello to everybody who got on the bus, because they would all come in through the front door and then they would pay their fare, and I would always say, hi, how you doing, how are things, da, 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 da. Again, nice to see you, thank you for coming. It got a little boring at times, but I did that with everybody because I wanted everybody to feel like they were welcome on the bus, and that was something that was really important for me. Do you know, I started taking a tabulation at one point.
Okay.
Guess what the percentage of people were that when I said, hi, how are you? They answered back. Give me a percentage.
With you initiating it, I want to say the percentage was high. So I'm going to go with 75. Actually, no, that's too boring. I'm going to go with 77.6.
20%.
That
20%.
hurts.
I know.
Ouch.
20% of the people either took me for as real or treated me as a human being. The other 80% didn't even. I had people I had people that I said, hey, how you doing, and as they walked by, and I had people actually stop and turn around and say, what'd you say, anticipating that I was going to say something rude and nasty. That's how we have been conditioned, at least here in the United States. We've been conditioned to treat each other less than. And I'm quite frankly very tired of it.
Yeah. And I actually, as you're saying that too, what popped into my head is people are expecting the worst of others. Right.
Yes.
So like if they don't clearly hear what you're saying, and like you said, they turn, what you say to me, because they're expecting you to say something bad. So they turn around with that assumption, even though You're just being friendly.
Yeah. See, friendly is not allowed in some of those circles. And now, and I understand, I get it. There were lots of bus drivers who were participating in what I call a golden handcuff job. What that means, they made too much money to quit the job, but they hated the job. So it was
Oh, yes.
and so don't ever do a job. Don't ever work at a job that you don't like, because it becomes painfully obvious that you don't like that job. And so go find something that you want to do with yourself. Do something positive with yourself. That's and you're right. You make that decision, don't you?
Exactly. And that's what I said to my mom, because and she's talking about this job, and I said, okay, but remember when I helped you look for a job, and we're talking maybe 6-7 years ago, and I said, and every posting that came up, you didn't want, because you didn't want to go to part-time and you didn't want to take a pay cut, because she's worked at the same place for 20 years. So yeah, that, what'd you call it? Golden handcuff? She didn't want to quit a job that she hated because she makes not great money, but more than the other jobs we're giving. And I'm like, but you're going to have to start at the bottom again and work your way up. But she didn't want to do that. So you're deciding then to not change.
Yeah. You're making the conscious decision. I'm not going to be happy today because I have to go to work and I hate my job, but I'm not going to quit because I make 50 cents an hour more than I would otherwise. And
exactly.
That's what a hell of a way to live a life.
I couldn't do it. That's for sure.
Well, and nor do you. And here's the thing, for anybody and for everyone who's listening, nor do you have to live your life that way. Yes. The beautiful thing about this life is you get to choose. You get to choose whatever you want to do, however you want to show up in the world. Randi-Lee decided a long time ago that she was going to show up as a positive influence of people. She was going to work with her son. She was going to kick the people in the face. Wait a minute.
That's still positive. You just have to go back to the beginning of the show to know why it's positive.
Exactly. We've just got a minute or so left, my friend, and I'll get off my soapbox, but I just want to make sure everybody knows rbwriting.ca. You got a bunch of books there, including one about going to the bathroom, which I'm not going to get into, but
it's a social story.
It's a social story. So yes, indeed. And is there anything you'd like to add before we have to run away?
I didn't mention the name of my channel on YouTube. We did talk about what's on there. So if you are interested in hearing the history of mental health or talking about mental health at all, go and look at Write or Die Show. That'll be on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Is it the right? How do you spell right?
Write, like you're writing something, WRITE.
Isn't that so? I hate the English language because how many ways are there to spell right?
Too many? Okay.
Yes.
There's two.
That's exactly right. So again, the name of your channel again is
Write or Die Show.
And please choose to write. The other one we don't want to see, this is positive talk, so we don't want to talk about the dying part, but we choose to write, and that's a positive thing.
Exactly.
And contact Randi-Lee. She might even help you.
I could. It's a thing.
It is a thing. Randi-Lee, thank you for being here. You are one of my favorite guests of all time, and you're welcome to come back anytime you want.
I will be back.
Thank you, because she likes me. She really, really, really likes me.
Well, I've been on this show how many, probably almost 10 by now, I would think. I don't know. But it's always a different conversation. That's what I love.
I can't do it any other way. It just kind of shows up the way it is. Yeah. And I had one of the people, and I got to go, but one of the people commented, she said, I love his show because I never know what he's going to say. I don't know what I'm going to say. So take care, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because